They thought it was a joke when she asked to test their weapons. The elite operators exchanged knowing smirks as the petite civilian approached their firing line. But as Emma Reynolds lifted the specialized rifle, a strange hush descended over the training ground. No one expected what came next, a series of shots that would rewrite history and challenge everything these hardened warriors thought they knew about talent. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Emma Reynolds' modest apartment, casting golden rays across the collection of marksmanship trophies that lined her bookshelf. At 32, Emma's hands showed the slight calluses of someone who spent countless hours perfecting the craft, not from military service, but from a lifetime dedicated to competitive shooting. Unlike the warriors she would soon encounter, Emma's journey began not on a battlefield, but on her grandfather's rural property in Montana. Black and white photos on her wall told the story. 3 generations of Reynolds standing proudly with rifles, each teaching the next. Her grandfather, father, and older brother featured prominently, but Emma appeared in just as many, often outshining them all. Emma's face carried a natural beauty, unmarked by expensive products. Her blonde hair typically pulled back in a practical ponytail that kept it from interfering with her sight picture. Though striking, she never relied on looks-only results. "Are you absolutely certain about this visit?" Her father's concerned voice crackled through her phone speaker as she prepared her morning coffee. "The Special Operations Training Facility isn't exactly a public range." "Emma, Dad, I've been shooting since I was 7, she replied, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who knew her capabilities without needing to broadcast them. "The research fellowship gives me legitimate access, and my ballistic study needs real-world application data. I know your credentials are impeccable, sweetheart. You're the best shooter I've ever seen, better than all of us combined," he said with unmistakable pride. "But these military types can be," he trailed off, "unwelcoming to civilians, especially female civilians." Emma finished his sentence, a hint of resignation in her voice. The silence on the other end confirmed it. Emma sighed, tracing her finger along the rim of her coffee mug. "My dissertation on advanced ballistic compensation techniques needs field testing with elite marksmen. This is a rare opportunity." Her father chuckled softly. "You've always been the determined one. Just remember you have nothing to prove to anyone." After hanging up, Emma walked to the spare bedroom she'd converted into a home office. Her latest research papers covered the desk-complex mathematical formulas and wind calculation models that had earned her a PhD in physics and a reputation in academic ballistic circles. On the wall hung her most prized possession, a custom precision rifle. Not military issue, but a specialized competition model she had meticulously modified over years. Nothing flashy, but in the right hands, it could perform miracles of accuracy. Emma ran her fingers along the barrel, feeling the cool metal that had become an extension of herself. This wasn't just equipment. It was the culmination of a lifetime's passion. Her grandfather had taught her that a great shot comes from understanding physics, not just pulling a trigger. "Bullets follow the laws of nature," he would say, "and nature speaks mathematics." She carefully placed her research materials in her backpack alongside her shooting log, a detailed journal of every significant shot she'd ever taken, with environmental conditions, adjustments, and results meticulously recorded. Each entry represented another lesson learned, another variable mastered. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Slipping into a simple blue button-down shirt and practical khaki pants, Emma took one final look in the mirror. No makeup, no pretense, just Emma Reynolds, physicist, ballistics expert, and unassuming marksmanship prodigy. She knew she didn't look like someone who could outshoot Special Forces operators. That assumption had followed her entire life, and she'd disproven it every single time. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother, a former Army Ranger. Don't let them intimidate you. Remember, most of them shoot well despite their training, not because of it. Show them what a true natural looks like. Emma smiled, typing back, I'm just there to collect data. Not planning any demonstrations. Sure you aren't, came his immediate reply, followed by a winking emoji. As she gathered her credentials and visitor pass, Emma felt a flutter of nervousness. Not about shooting, never about that, but about entering a world where she knew she'd be judged before she ever touched a weapon. The military had its own culture, its own hierarchies, and its own prejudices. As a civilian woman entering their domain, she'd have to navigate carefully. Just focus on the research, she reminded herself as she started her car. Nothing else matters but the data. The Special Operations Training Facility sprawled across several hundred acres of government land, its entrance marked by nothing more than a nondescript gate and a single guard post. Emma's vehicle, a practical sedan rather than the rugged trucks and jeeps parked nearby, already marked her as an outsider. She presented her credentials to the stone-faced security officer, who examined them with obvious skepticism. Purpose of visit? He asked, though it was clearly noted on her authorization. Ballistics research for the Advanced Targeting Systems project, Emma replied evenly. I'm expected by Captain Rodriguez. The guard made a call, confirming her clearance before reluctantly waving her through with directions to the Advanced Marksmanship training area. As she drove deeper into the facility, the landscape transformed into a shooter's paradise. Ranges of varying distances, mock urban environments, and sophisticated target systems that would make any serious marksman envious. When she parked and stepped out, Emma could immediately feel eyes on her. A group of men in tactical gear stood near the entrance to the long-range section, their conversation dying as they noticed her approach. 8 operators, each bearing the unmistakable confidence and physical presence of elite warriors. You must be Dr. Reynolds, a voice called out. A tall man with close-cropped dark hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command stepped forward. Captain Rodriguez, we received your research brief. Emma extended her hand, which he shook firmly. Thank you for accommodating my visit, Captain. The data I collect here will be invaluable. Rodriguez nodded, professional but clearly reserved. We've set aside time on our 1,000-yard range as requested. Though I should mention, the team is in the middle of qualification runs for advanced sniper certification. I won't interrupt your schedule, Emma assured him. I just need to observe and take measurements. The captain gestured toward the group of men. Delta Force Advanced Marksmanship Unit. Some of the best shooters in the U.S. military. The introduction carried an unspoken message. You're among professionals now. Emma nodded respectfully as Rodriguez led her toward the group. The men's expressions ranged from polite disinterest to barely concealed skepticism as they were introduced. Master Sergeant Wilson, team lead. Rodriguez indicated a weathered-looking man in his 40s with piercing eyes that seemed to evaluate every detail about her. Wilson gave a curt nod. Staff Sergeant Cooper, our current record holder. A younger man with a confident smile and the easy stance of a natural athlete. Cooper's handshake was firm, his gaze direct. The rest of the team, Martinez, Jackson, Diaz, Lowry, Harrison, and Chun. Each man acknowledged her with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Dr. Reynolds will be observing today and collecting data for the Advanced Targeting Systems Research Project, Rodriguez explained. She has clearance to access all areas of the range and equipment. Will you be firing today, ma'am? Wilson asked, his tone suggesting he hoped the answer was no. Not unless it would help my research, Emma replied diplomatically. I'm primarily here to observe experts like yourselves. This seemed to satisfy Wilson, who nodded and turned back to his team. All right, let's get back to it. Cooper's still leading with his 975-yard grouping. Jackson, you're up next. As the men moved toward the firing line, Emma heard snippets of their conversation. Physics professor or something. Probably never fired anything more powerful than a .22. Waste of range time if you ask me. Emma had expected this. She set up her equipment, a specialized weather station, ballistic calculator, and high-speed camera to capture bullet flight, and began taking readings of wind conditions, temperature, and humidity. The data would form the backbone of her research, but she couldn't help watching the shooters themselves. They were undeniably skilled. Each man displayed the fundamentals of excellent marksmanship, and their results were impressive by any standard. Cooper, in particular, showed exceptional talent, his groupings tight and consistent at ranges that would humble most shooters. 975 yards, 5 shots, 3-inch group, Wilson announced as Cooper finished his qualification run. Still the man to beat. Emma made notes in her journal, recording not just environmental data, but observations about technique, breathing patterns, and minute variations in form between shooters. Her academic approach caught the attention of Martinez, who wandered over during a break. "Finding anything interesting, Dr. Reynolds?" he asked, genuinely curious rather than condescending. Emma showed him her calculations. "I'm tracking the correlation between microclimatic changes and impact point deviation. Your team is providing excellent data points." Martinez examined her notes with raised eyebrows. "You really understand this stuff, huh? Most civilians think shooting is just about holding steady and pulling a trigger." "It's applied physics," Emma replied. "Ballistics was my focus long before it became my profession." Their conversation was interrupted by Cooper, who approached with an easy confidence. "So, doctor, do you shoot yourself, or is this all theoretical research?" "I have some experience," Emma said simply. Cooper grinned. "Ever fired anything like these?" He patted his rifle, a highly customized military-issue precision weapon with advanced optics. "Similar principles apply across platforms," Emma replied, not taking the bait. "Though I typically use my own custom build for competition." This caught Cooper's interest. "Competition? What level?" "National circuit, primarily," Emma said. "Though I've been focused on research lately." Cooper exchanged glances with Martinez, clearly reassessing. "National level's no joke. What's your personal best distance for a tight group?" Emma hesitated, knowing her answer would change the dynamic. 850 yards, 1/4-inch group, 5 shots. The two men stared at her. Cooper broke into laughter. "Good one, Doc. No, seriously." "She's probably talking about controlled conditions," Martinez suggested. "Indoor range, perfect settings, competition rules." Emma said nothing, returning to her equipment. Let them think what they wanted. She wasn't here to prove herself, only to collect data. As the day progressed, Emma continued her observations while the team completed their qualification runs. None had managed to beat Cooper's impressive performance, and his confidence grew with each challenger's failure. During the final break before the day's exercises concluded, Wilson approached Emma. Unlike earlier, his demeanor had softened slightly as he'd observed her professional approach to her work. "Your research, it's about improving first-round hit probability under variable conditions?" he asked. Emma nodded. "By developing a more comprehensive atmospheric model that accounts for micro-variations in wind patterns across distance." Wilson considered this. "Useful. In the field, we don't always get second chances." "Exactly. If my algorithms are correct, they could increase first-round accuracy by up to 15% at extreme distances." For the first time, Wilson looked genuinely impressed. "That would save lives." Their conversation was interrupted by Captain Rodriguez announcing the final event of the day, an extreme distance challenge at the legendary Devil's Reach target. At 1,200 yards, with unpredictable crosswinds channeled through the surrounding hills, It represented the ultimate test of skill and calculation. "This one's for bragging rights," Rodriguez explained to Emma. "The current record was set 20 years ago by Master Sergeant Taylor. 3 hits out of 5 shots. No one's beaten it since." Emma watched as the team prepared for the challenge, their earlier casualness replaced by intense focus. This was clearly more than just another qualification run. It was a matter of pride. Cooper went first, approaching the firing line with the confidence of someone accustomed to success. He spent several minutes checking conditions, making calculations, and adjusting his scope. His preparation was methodical and professional. When he finally fired his 5 rounds, the team crowded around the spotter scope. "2 hits," Wilson announced. "Excellent shooting, Cooper." One by one, the other team members attempted the challenge. Martinez managed 1 hit. Jackson and Chun each scored 2. The others missed completely, the unpredictable winds at that distance proving too difficult to master. "Not bad, gentlemen," Wilson said when they had finished. Cooper's still on top with 2 hits. As the team began packing up their equipment, Emma finished her final calculations and closed her notebook. The day had provided excellent data, and she was satisfied with the results. Still, something nagged at her, an opportunity to test her theories in real time. "Captain Rodriguez," she said as she approached the officer, "would it be possible for me to attempt the long-distance challenge? It would provide valuable comparative data for my research." Rodriguez looked surprised, but not dismissive. "If you have your own weapon, Dr. Reynolds, I don't see why not. We have the range for another hour." The team members exchanged glances ranging from amusement to curiosity as Emma returned to her car and retrieved a long, custom case. When she opened it, even Cooper looked impressed at the precision rifle inside. A specialized carbon fiber stock, match-grade barrel, an advanced targeting system that spoke of serious investment and expertise. "That's no beginner's setup," Wilson observed as Emma began her preparations. "My grandfather started teaching me when I was 7, Emma replied, assembling her rifle with practiced efficiency. "This is the evolution of 25 years of learning." The team gathered at a respectful distance, watching as Emma prepared. Unlike their earlier dismissiveness, they now observed with professional interest. She was clearly not what they had initially assumed. "Devil's Reach is no joke," Cooper warned, his tone now collegial rather than condescending. "The wind changes direction twice between here and the target. Most civilian ranges don't have anything comparable." Emma's eyes narrowed slightly as she surveyed the distance to the Devil's Reach target. "I'm familiar with variable wind conditions," she said simply, not elaborating on the countless hours she'd spent studying atmospheric physics specifically to master such challenges. Her response wasn't boastful, just factual. She began her preparation ritual with methodical precision, laying out her shooting mat and setting up her portable weather station. The Delta operators watched with growing interest as she pulled out a small notebook, filled with handwritten formulas and ballistic tables calculations she'd developed herself through years of research. "You're not using standard military ballistic charts?" Wilson asked, peering over her shoulder. "They're useful baselines," Emma replied, "but they don't account for the specific harmonics of my rifle or the custom load I'm using." She continued making notations, factoring in temperature, humidity, and the subtle wind shifts indicated by distant heat mirages. Cooper stepped closer, his earlier skepticism giving way to professional curiosity. "What's your process for reading those canyon winds? They're notoriously unpredictable." Emma gestured toward the valley between their position and the target. "I'm tracking 3 separate wind indicators at different distances. The vegetation movement at 400 yards, dust patterns at 800, and heat distortion at the target itself. Each tells me something different about the air column." The team exchanged impressed glances. Her approach was more sophisticated than their standard training, combining military precision with scientific methodology. As Emma settled into position behind her rifle, the atmosphere changed. The team's casual observation transformed into focused attention. They recognized the posture of a serious shooter, someone who understood the fundamentals at an instinctive level. "You planning to take all 5 shots?" Rodriguez asked. "If I may," Emma replied, making a final adjustment to her scope. Cooper grinned at his teammates. "This should be interesting. Civilian or not, the lady knows her equipment." Master Sergeant Wilson positioned himself behind the spotting scope. "Ready when you are, Dr. Reynolds." Emma took a deep breath, centering herself. This moment wasn't about proving anything to these men. It was about the pure science and art of the perfect shot, the culmination of a lifetime dedicated to understanding every variable that affects a bullet's flight. She began her breathing routine, slowing her heart rate through controlled respiration. Her mind calculated wind vectors, bullet drop, and spin drift automatically after years of practice. The world narrowed to her sight picture, the subtle pressure of her finger on the trigger, and the distant target wavering in the afternoon heat. The first shot broke the silence with a sharp crack. Before the echo faded, Wilson's voice cut through. "Hit. Center mass." Emma worked the bolt smoothly, chambering her second round without breaking position. The team watched in silence as she repeated her process, making minute adjustments for the changing conditions. "Hit," Wilson called again after her second shot. Within an inch of the first, the atmosphere among the Delta operators shifted palpably. What had begun as polite accommodation of a civilian observer had become rapt attention to a display of exceptional skill. Emma fired her third shot, adjusting slightly for a subtle wind shift she detected through her scope. "Hit," Wilson announced, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. 3 for 3. Cooper whistled softly. That's already matched the 20-year record. Emma remained focused, blocking out everything except the perfect execution of her next shot. She noted a stronger crosswind developing and compensated accordingly. The fourth shot cracked out. A moment of tense silence followed. "Hit," Wilson almost shouted. 4 consecutive hits at 1,200 yards. The team erupted in murmurs of disbelief and appreciation. Emma had already broken a record that had stood for 2 decades at their training facility, a record set by a legendary Delta sniper. As she prepared for her final shot, Emma could feel the weight of the moment. The scientific part of her brain noted how her heart rate had increased slightly with the awareness of what she was accomplishing. She took an extra breath, recalibrating both her body and her calculations. The final shot rang out across the range. The longest second of silence followed. "Hit," Wilson's voice held genuine awe. 5 for 5. Perfect score. The range erupted in spontaneous applause. Emma rose to her feet, her expression calm despite having just shattered a record that some of the military's best shooters had been trying to break for 20 years. Cooper was the first to approach her, extending his hand with genuine respect. "That was the most impressive shooting I've ever witnessed, Doctor. Where did you learn to read wind like that?" "My grandfather started me with wind flags when I was 10, Emma explained, beginning to break down her equipment. "He said anyone could shoot on a calm day, but mastering the wind was what separated good shooters from great ones." "Your grandfather trained military?" Martinez asked. Emma shook her head. "He was a physics professor who loved precision shooting. Taught me that marksmanship is just applied science, a perfect blend of mathematics, physics, and human discipline." Wilson joined them, still shaking his head in disbelief. 20 years that record stood. Some of the best shooters in special operations have tried to break it. "Dr. Reynolds," Captain Rodriguez said formally, "I believe we owe you more than just range time for your research. Your demonstration today was educational for all of us." Emma smiled slightly. "I'd be happy to share my atmospheric calculation methods with your team, if that would be useful. They're the foundation of my current research." I think we'd all appreciate that, Rodriguez replied, looking around at his team who nodded enthusiastically. As they walked back toward the main range building, the operators peppered Emma with questions about her techniques, equipment choices, and training methods. The earlier condescension had vanished completely, replaced by professional respect and genuine curiosity. "Why aren't you shooting professionally?" Jackson asked. "With skills like that, you could dominate the circuit." "I compete occasionally," Emma replied. "But my research is my priority. Improving the science of marksmanship can help more people than just winning competitions myself." Inside the range building, the team gathered around a conference table as Emma opened her laptop and began explaining her approach to long-distance shooting. The atmosphere had transformed completely. She was no longer an outsider, but a respected specialist with valuable knowledge to share. "The standard military ballistic calculators are excellent tools," she explained, displaying her custom software on a projection screen. "But they rely on generalized models that don't account for micro-atmospheric conditions or the specific characteristics of individual weapons." Cooper leaned forward, studying the complex formulas on the screen. "So you're saying our misses aren't just about shooter error, but calculation limitations?" "Exactly," Emma nodded. "At extreme distances, tiny atmospheric variations create cumulative effects. My system tracks these patterns and provides more precise compensation values." For the next hour, Emma walked the team through her methodology, demonstrating how her algorithms predicted bullet path deviations caused by atmospheric conditions invisible to standard measuring tools. The operators took detailed notes, occasionally exchanging looks of amazement at the depth of her knowledge. "This changes everything about how we approach long-distance engagements," Wilson said finally, setting down his pen. "Dr. Reynolds, your 5 minutes on our range may have just revolutionized our entire training program." Emma closed her laptop, pleased that her research was being taken seriously. "The military applications are just beginning. With further development, this system could be integrated into your existing optics." Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Dr. Reynolds, would you consider extending your research visit? Perhaps a more formal collaboration with our unit?" Emma hadn't expected this opportunity. "I'd be honored, Captain. My fellowship allows for extended field research if the data justifies it." "I'd say breaking a 20-year record justifies quite a bit," Cooper grinned. As the formal meeting concluded, Wilson approached Emma privately. "There's something I'm curious about," he said, his weathered face thoughtful. "Your shooting technique, it's flawless, but it's not standard military. Where did you really learn?" Emma considered how to answer. "My grandfather laid the foundation," she explained, "but I've studied with masters from around the world, Olympic gold medalists, champion competitive shooters, even a Zen archery master who taught me about the mental aspects of precision." Wilson nodded slowly. "I sense that. You shoot differently than anyone I've trained with, more integrated. Like, the rifle is just an extension of your thought process." "That's exactly what my grandfather taught me," Emma smiled. "He said the perfect shot happens in the mind before it happens in reality." "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man." "He was," Emma said quietly. "Everything I know started with him." As Emma prepared to leave the facility, the team gathered to say goodbye. The transformation in their attitude was remarkable, from dismissive tolerance to genuine respect in the space of a single day. "So, will we see you tomorrow?" Cooper asked. "I'll need to arrange accommodations if I'm staying longer," Emma replied. "There's temporary housing for visiting specialists on base," Rodriguez offered. "I've already started the paperwork." Emma was touched by their eagerness to continue working with her. "Then yes, I'll be back tomorrow. There's much more data to collect." As she drove away from the facility, Emma reflected on how differently the day had ended compared to her expectations. She'd come seeking data for her research, not intending to demonstrate her skills or challenge any records. Yet sometimes she realized the most effective way to change minds wasn't through arguments, but through quiet demonstration of excellence. Her phone rang through the car's speaker system. It was her brother. "So?" he asked without preamble. "How did it go with the Delta boys? Did they patronize you the whole time?" Emma smiled. "Actually, they've invited me to extend my research visit and collaborate with their training program." "What? How did you manage that in one day?" "They had this long-distance challenge. A 20-year record no one had beaten." Her brother's laughter filled the car. "You couldn't resist, could you?" "What was the record?" 3 hits out of 5 at 1,200 yards with variable winds." "And you?" 5 for 5, Emma said simply. Her brother whooped so loudly she had to turn down the volume. "That's my sister." "I wish I could have seen their faces." "It wasn't about showing them up," Emma clarified. "It was about the perfect application of the principles Grandpa taught us. The same principles I'm researching now." "Still," her brother insisted, "those guys needed the lesson. Special operations types can get too comfortable being the best in the room." Emma thought about Cooper's genuine enthusiasm when discussing her techniques, and Wilson's thoughtful questions about her approach. "They're professionals," she said. "Once they saw something valuable, they wanted to learn from it, regardless of the source." After ending the call, Emma stopped at a small diner on the outskirts of town. As she waited for her order, she opened her notebook and began refining her calculations based on the day's observations. The data from the Devil's Reach shots would significantly enhance her models. A shadow fell across her table. She looked up to find Cooper standing there, still in his training uniform. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "The team's having dinner down the street, and I saw your car." Emma gestured to the empty seat across from her. "Please." Cooper sat down, his expression more serious than it had been earlier. "I wanted to apologize," he said directly. "When you first arrived, we all made assumptions that turned out to be completely wrong." "It happens all the time," Emma shrugged. "I'm used to it." "That's part of the problem, isn't it?" Cooper said thoughtfully. "You shouldn't have to be used to it." Emma set down her pen. "In competitive shooting, being underestimated can be an advantage. People get sloppy when they don't see you as a threat." Cooper laughed. "I'll remember that. Though after today, I don't think anyone at Delta will underestimate you again." Their conversation was interrupted as the rest of the team entered the diner, spotting them immediately. Within minutes, Emma found herself surrounded by the entire unit, their earlier dinner plans abandoned in favor of continuing their discussion about advanced shooting techniques. "We've been talking," Wilson said once they had all settled with their meals. "Your research aligns perfectly with a project we've been developing, a new training methodology for extreme distance engagements. We'd like you to consider a formal advisory role," Rodriguez added. "Your expertise would be invaluable." Emma was stunned by the offer. "I'm flattered, but I'm an academic, not a military contractor." "That's exactly why we need you," Wilson explained. "You approach these problems differently than our usual consultants. Your perspective could save lives in the field." As the discussion continued, Emma realized how far she had come from the nervous researcher who had arrived that morning, expecting to be tolerated at best. These elite warriors were now treating her as an equal, perhaps even as someone with knowledge they needed. "I'll need to discuss it with my university," she said finally. "But I'm definitely interested." The evening extended as the operators shared stories from their training and deployments, carefully edited for security, but full of the camaraderie and gallows humor typical of elite units. They included Emma naturally in their conversation, no longer seeing her as an outsider, but as a respected colleague. When they finally parted ways outside the diner, Cooper lingered behind as the others headed to their vehicles. "Something on your mind, Sergeant?" Emma asked. "I'm just curious," he said. Today, when you broke that record, you didn't seem surprised. It was like you expected to hit all 5 shots. Emma considered his observation. I did expect it, she admitted. Not from arrogance, but because I'd calculated every variable and executed exactly as I'd trained to do thousands of times before. In my mind, there was no reason to miss. Cooper shook his head in amazement. That level of confidence, I've never experienced it. Even on my best days, there's always doubt. It's not confidence in myself, Emma explained. It's confidence in the physics. The bullet doesn't care who's pulling the trigger or what uniform they're wearing. It only responds to the forces acting upon it, forces that can be measured, calculated, and mastered. As Cooper considered her words, Emma realized she was no longer just sharing shooting techniques, but a philosophy that had guided her entire life, one that transcended gender, background, or preconceptions. I'd like to learn more about your approach, Cooper said finally. Not just the calculations, but the mindset. That's what my research is really about, Emma smiled. The integration of the technical and the human elements. It's what makes the difference between good shooters and truly exceptional ones. As Emma drove to her hotel later that night, she reflected on the unexpected turn her research visit had taken. What had begun as a simple data collection exercise had transformed into something much more significant, both for her research and for the elite unit that had initially dismissed her. She thought of her grandfather's words from long ago. Excellence speaks a language everyone understands eventually. You just need to be patient enough to let it do the talking. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. The Delta team would be watching her now, not with skepticism, but with expectations. She would need to deliver not just impressive shooting, but valuable insights that could improve their capabilities in the field. But for tonight, Emma was content knowing that she had honored her grandfather's legacy in the best possible way, not by proving others wrong, but by demonstrating what was possible when science, skill, and determination came together in perfect harmony. Her phone chimed with a message from Rodriguez. Paperwork approved. Housing ready for tomorrow. The team is already reworking the training schedule to maximize your input. Emma smiled as she typed her reply. Looking forward to it. I have some new ideas to share. Sometimes the most powerful change comes not from demanding respect, but from quietly earning it through undeniable excellence. Today, on a windswept range facing an impossible target, Emma Reynolds had done exactly that, and in the process, perhaps changed minds in ways that would extend far beyond her brief visit. The true measure of her impact wouldn't be in broken records or impressed operators, but in the lives that might someday be saved by the knowledge she shared, knowledge that might never have been accepted if she hadn't first shown that she belonged on that firing line, regardless of what anyone thought when she first arrived. The next morning dawned with a brilliant sunrise that painted the military facility in hues of gold and amber. Emma arrived early, her mind already racing with ideas for the day's collaboration. When she pulled into the parking area, she found Wilson waiting for her, 2 steaming cups of coffee in hand. Thought you might need this, he said, offering her one of the cups. We tend to start early around here. Perfect timing, Emma smiled, accepting the coffee gratefully. I was up half the night refining my models based on yesterday's data. Wilson nodded appreciatively. That's the kind of dedication our team respects. Come on, the others are already setting up. As they walked toward the range, Wilson's demeanor was markedly different from the previous day, relaxed, collegial, almost protective. Just so you know, he said casually, word has spread about your performance yesterday. You might find a few additional observers today. Emma raised an eyebrow. Additional observers? Command staff, Wilson explained. When they heard someone broke Taylor's 20-year record, it raised some eyebrows, especially when they learned it was a civilian researcher. I hope that doesn't complicate things, Emma said, suddenly concerned about the potential political dimensions of her presence. Wilson chuckled. Quite the opposite. They're interested in your research now. Nothing gets attention around here faster than exceptional results. When they reached the range, Emma found the entire Delta team already assembled, along with several senior officers she hadn't met before. Cooper spotted her first, waving her over to where he was adjusting the settings on a sophisticated weather station. "Dr. Reynolds," he called, "we've integrated some of your environmental tracking methods into our standard setup. Mind checking if we've got it right? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." Emma spent the next hour working with the team to refine their approach to atmospheric data collection. The operators proved to be quick studies, adapting her academic concepts into practical field applications with impressive speed. Their questions were insightful, their observations valuable even to her research. "You've thought about wind vectors differently than our standard training," Martinez noted as they examined a 3D model of the range's terrain on a tablet. "We're taught to read indicators sequentially, but you're tracking multiple data points simultaneously. It's a parallel processing approach rather than linear," Emma explained. "The atmosphere isn't a single entity, but layers of interacting systems. By observing multiple indicators at once, you can build a more complete picture of what's happening between you and the target." A distinguished-looking colonel approached as they were finishing the morning's theoretical session. "Dr. Reynolds," he said, extending his hand. "Colonel Harrington, Special Operations Command. Your demonstration yesterday has generated considerable interest." Emma shook his hand, maintaining her professional composure despite the unexpected attention. "It's just the practical application of my research, Colonel. Your team has been extremely accommodating. I understand you've developed new algorithms for ballistic prediction under variable conditions," Harrington continued. "The potential applications for our snipers in the field could be significant." "That's my hope," Emma nodded. "Though there's still substantial testing to be done before it's field ready." "Then let's get to that testing," Harrington said with a decisive nod. "I've authorized expanded range access and additional resources for your collaboration with the team." As the colonel moved away to speak with Captain Rodriguez, Wilson rejoined Emma. "Looks like you've made quite an impression upstairs," he observed. "This isn't what I expected when I applied for research access," Emma admitted. Wilson smiled. "Excellence has a way of creating its own opportunities, Doctor. Now, are you ready to show us more of what you can do? The team has set up a demonstration scenario based on your methodology." The demonstration scenario turned out to be an advanced course that combined elements of traditional marksmanship with Emma's atmospheric modeling techniques. The Delta operators had worked through the night to integrate her approach into their training protocols, creating a series of challenging shots that would test the limits of her system. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "We'd like you to walk us through it," Cooper explained as they surveyed the course. "Show us how you'd approach each position and target combination while explaining your thought process." For the next several hours, Emma guided the team through her methodology, demonstrating techniques she developed over years of research and practice. What amazed the operators wasn't just her accuracy, though that remained exceptional, but the consistency of her approach and the clarity with which she could explain complex concepts. "It's like she speaks two languages fluently," Martinez commented to Wilson as they observed. "The language of academic physics and the language of practical shooting." "That's what makes her unique," Wilson replied. "Most academic consultants can't translate theory into application. Most shooters can't explain why their techniques work from a scientific perspective. She bridges both worlds." By midday, the entire team was implementing elements of Emma's system, with noticeable improvements in their long-distance accuracy. Even the most experienced operators found value in her approach, adapting their well-established techniques to incorporate her insights. During a break for lunch, Emma found herself seated with Cooper and Rodriguez in the facility's cafeteria, discussing the morning's progress. "Your system would have saved us countless hours of trial and error in Afghanistan," Cooper said between bites of his sandwich. "We were constantly adjusting for mountain wind patterns that seemed completely unpredictable. The Hindu Kush creates some of the most complex atmospheric conditions on Earth," Emma nodded. "My algorithms were actually tested against data collected from similar mountain ranges." Rodriguez leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Dr. Reynolds, there's something we'd like to propose. We have an annual advanced marksmanship competition next week. Teams from across special operations participate. Would you consider joining us as a technical advisor?" Emma hesitated. "That's flattering, Captain, but I'm a researcher, not a military trainer." "That's exactly why we need you," Cooper interjected. "Everyone else will be using the same standard approaches. Your fresh perspective could give us an edge." "Besides," Rodriguez added with a slight smile, "after yesterday's performance, I think you've earned the right to influence how we approach precision shooting." Before Emma could respond, an urgent call came over Rodriguez's radio. His expression transformed instantly from casual to intensely focused as he listened to the message. "We need to cut lunch short," he announced, standing abruptly. "There's a situation developing that requires immediate attention." Emma followed as Rodriguez led them rapidly back to the range building, where the rest of the team was already gathering around a central briefing table. Colonel Harrington stood at the head, his face grave as he acknowledged their arrival. "Gentlemen and Dr. Reynolds," he began, nodding to Emma, "we have an emergency developing at Lakeside Medical Center downtown. A former Special Forces operator suffering from severe PTSD has barricaded himself on the roof with what appears to be an explosive device. He's demanding to speak with someone who understands what we went through overseas." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Local police have established a perimeter, but they're out of their depth," Harrington continued. The subject, identified as former Sergeant James Lawson, served 3 tours in high-intensity combat zones. He's trained in explosives and counter-surveillance. This situation requires our specialized approach. "What's the plan, sir?" Wilson asked, already shifting into operational mode. "We're establishing a command post 2 blocks from the hospital," Harrington replied. "Negotiation team is en route, but we need overwatch positions established immediately in case the situation deteriorates." The colonel's eyes swept across the room before settling on Emma. "Dr. Reynolds, I apologize that your research visit has been interrupted by this situation. You're welcome to remain at the facility until the team returns." Emma nodded her understanding, but Cooper spoke up unexpectedly. "Sir, Dr. Reynolds' expertise might actually be valuable in this scenario." Harrington raised an eyebrow. "Explain, Sergeant." "The hospital is surrounded by a complex urban environment, buildings of varying heights, narrow streets creating unpredictable wind channels, multiple reflective surfaces. Standard ballistic calculations would be approximations at best if we need to take a shot." Rodriguez caught on immediately. "Cooper's right, sir. Dr. Reynolds' atmospheric modeling would give our snipers a significant advantage in that environment." The colonel considered this for a moment, then turned to Emma. "Dr. Reynolds, would you be willing to assist in an advisory capacity? I want to be clear that you would remain well behind the actual operation, providing technical consultation only." Emma felt the weight of every eye in the room. This was no longer about research or demonstrations. This was a real crisis with lives at stake. Her expertise, developed over years in academic settings, suddenly had immediate, practical application. "I'll help however I can," she said firmly. 30 minutes later, Emma found herself in a command vehicle speeding toward downtown, surrounded by Delta operators now dressed in civilian clothes, but carrying specialized equipment in unmarked cases. The transformation in their demeanor was remarkable. These were no longer trainees or colleagues, but consummate professionals preparing for a High-stakes operation. Lawson was one of ours, Wilson explained quietly as they neared their destination. 3 years ago, before most of the current team joined. Outstanding operator, but he saw things in his last deployment that broke something inside him. We've tried to keep tabs on him, but the system doesn't make it easy. Emma nodded solemnly, understanding the additional layer of complexity this added to an already tense situation. This wasn't just any crisis, it was personal for the unit. The command post had been established in an office building with clear sight lines to the hospital roof where Lawson had positioned himself. When they arrived, local police and FBI agents were already coordinating the evacuation of surrounding buildings and establishing a secure perimeter. Colonel Harrington led Emma to a central operations room where multiple screens displayed live feeds from surveillance cameras and drones, circling at a discrete distance. On the largest monitor, a thermal image showed a single figure pacing on the hospital roof, periodically stopping to look out over the edge. Dr. Reynolds will be providing specialized ballistic consultation, Harrington announced to the assembled team leaders. Her input should be considered in all Overwatch positioning decisions. A skeptical-looking FBI tactical commander glanced at Emma. With all due respect, Colonel, this is an active crisis situation. We don't have time to integrate unfamiliar civilian consultants into the operation. Before Harrington could respond, Cooper stepped forward. Sir, Dr. Reynolds broke a 20-year sniper record at our facility yesterday with perfect accuracy at 1,200 yards in variable winds. Her atmospheric modeling system is beyond anything currently in use by any tactical unit. The FBI commander's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious interest. Is that so? Emma didn't waste time with credentials or explanations. Instead, she moved directly to the tactical map of the area and began analyzing the environmental factors that would affect any potential shot. You have 3 potential Overwatch positions with line of sight to the subject, she said, pointing to the map. But this position here, she indicated a building across from the hospital, is situated in a wind tunnel created by the surrounding structures. Any shot taken from that location would be subject to unpredictable crosswinds. She continued her analysis, identifying the complex atmospheric challenges presented by the urban environment and offering specific adjustments to compensate for them. The tactical commanders listened with increasing attention as the practical value of her expertise became apparent. Based on current conditions, Emma concluded, your best option is this position here, with a secondary team here. The wind patterns between these locations and the target are more predictable and can be accurately modeled with the right adjustments. The FBI commander nodded slowly, reassessing his initial judgment. Those are exactly the positions our snipers recommended, but they couldn't articulate the atmospheric reasoning so precisely. Your input is appreciated, Dr. Reynolds. As the tactical teams deployed to their positions, Emma worked with Cooper and Martinez to establish a real-time atmospheric monitoring system. Using her portable weather station and specialized software, they created a continuously updating model of wind patterns, temperature gradients, and other factors that would affect a precision shot if one became necessary. This is incredible, Martinez murmured as they watched the data visualization form on their screen. We're seeing air currents that would be completely invisible to standard monitoring. The urban environment creates complex interactions, Emma explained. Buildings heat differently, creating thermal updrafts. Wind channeling between structures can create localized acceleration. All of these factors affect bullet trajectory in ways that standard ballistic calculators don't fully account for. Their work was interrupted as Wilson approached, his expression tense. Negotiation team has made contact with Lawson, but it's not going well. He's increasingly agitated and making references to ending it all before sundown. Has he made any specific demands? Cooper asked. He wants to speak with someone who served in his unit, Wilson replied. Says he won't talk to anyone who doesn't know what it was like over there. A heavy silence fell over the group as they processed this information. The situation was deteriorating, and the window for a peaceful resolution was narrowing. Colonel Harrington joined them, his face grim. "We've located a former team member who served with Lawson, but he's 3 hours away. I'm not confident we have that much time." Emma had been quietly monitoring the atmospheric data while they spoke. Something caught her attention, a pattern in the wind currents that would have significant implications for the snipers positioned around the hospital. "Colonel," she said urgently, "there's a weather front moving in faster than predicted. Within the next hour, wind conditions around the target will change dramatically. If your snipers need to take a shot, their current calculations will be off by several inches at that distance." Harrington immediately grasped the significance. "Can you provide updated adjustments?" "Yes, but they'll need to recalibrate their scopes according to this model," Emma said, displaying the data visualization. "It's more complex than standard windage adjustments." "Do it," Harrington ordered. "Get this information to the Overwatch teams immediately." As Cooper transmitted Emma's calculations to the sniper teams, Rodriguez returned from a briefing with the negotiation team. "Lawson is showing signs of preparing for some kind of final action," he reported. "He's checked what appears to be a detonator multiple times in the last 10 minutes. The command center tensed as the situation approached a critical juncture. Emma continued monitoring the atmospheric conditions, providing minute-by-minute updates as the weather front advanced. The precision of her data and the clarity of her recommendations earned her the complete attention of the tactical commanders, who no longer questioned the value of her expertise. "Wind shift coming in 3 minutes," she announced, tracking the approaching front on her monitors. 30% increase in velocity with a directional change from northeast to due east. The sniper teams acknowledged the update, adjusting their positions and calculations accordingly. Emma's system was allowing them to anticipate changes that would otherwise have caught them unprepared. Suddenly, the radio crackled with an urgent message from the negotiation team. "Subject is becoming increasingly erratic. He's holding what appears to be a dead man switch and threatening immediate detonation if any attempt is made to approach him." Colonel Harrington turned to the tactical commanders. "Options?" The FBI tactical leader shook his head. "With a dead man switch, tranquilizer is too risky. His finger could release as he loses consciousness. A kill shot would have the same problem unless it was instantly incapacitating." "There is another possibility," Emma said quietly. Everyone turned to her. "A precision shot to the detonator itself could disable it without risking the dead man switch activation." The room fell silent as they considered her suggestion. The FBI commander spoke first. "That would require a level of accuracy beyond standard protocols. The detonator can't be more than a few inches across." "It would need to be perfect," Wilson agreed. "One shot, no margin for error under changing atmospheric conditions." Cooper looked at Emma. "Could your system provide that level of precision?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Yes, but the shooter would need to understand my methodology completely to execute it correctly." Colonel Harrington made his decision. "Cooper, you've worked most closely with Dr. Reynolds' system. You'll take the shot if it becomes necessary." For the next 20 minutes, Emma and Cooper worked intensively to prepare for a scenario they hoped wouldn't materialize. She refined her atmospheric model to account for the approaching weather front, while he internalized her calculations and adjustments. They spoke in the focused, abbreviated language of two specialists preparing for a task where perfection was the only acceptable outcome. "The key is to time your shot between wind pulses," Emma explained, showing him the rhythmic pattern visible in her data. "There's a 3-second window of relative calm that recurs approximately every 30 seconds. Cooper nodded, absorbing the information with total concentration. "And the thermal uplift from the hospital's Haycock system adds approximately 0.3 MeV of elevation at your distance," Emma confirmed. "I factored it into the final calculation." Their preparation was interrupted by an urgent update from the roof. Lawson had begun a countdown, announcing his intention to detonate in 5 minutes if his demands weren't met. The negotiation team reported that he appeared resolved to follow through. "Cooper, get to your position," Harrington ordered. "Authorization for the precision shot is granted if the subject begins final countdown actions." As Cooper left for his overwatch position, Emma continued monitoring the atmospheric conditions, communicating updates through their secure channel. The command center fell into tense silence, all eyes on the thermal image of Lawson pacing on the roof, the dark shape of the detonator clearly visible in his hand. "Atmospheric model complete," Emma announced. "Transmitting final calculations now." Through her headset, she heard Cooper's calm acknowledgement as he received the data. "Calculations received and inputted. I have a clear visual on the target device. Wind shifting in 10 seconds, Emma warned, watching the approaching front on her monitors. "Next stable window in 28 seconds from my mark." The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness. On the main screen, they could see Lawson's body language becoming increasingly agitated. The negotiator's voice grew more urgent over the radio. "Subject is beginning final countdown. 30 seconds announced." Colonel Harrington's voice was steady as he gave the order. "Cooper, take the shot when ready. Priority is the device, not the subject." Emma focused entirely on her atmospheric data, watching for the precise moment when conditions would be optimal. "Cooper, stable window approaching in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now." Through her headset, she heard Cooper's measured exhale, followed by the report of his rifle. On the thermal screen, they saw Lawson recoil as something flew from his hand, tumbling across the roof. He dropped to the ground, clutching his hand but clearly alive. "Device neutralized," came Cooper's calm voice. "Subject is injured but conscious. No detonation." The command center erupted in controlled activity as tactical teams moved to secure the roof and take Lawson into custody. Medical personnel stood ready to treat his injury painful but non-life-threatening. Emma sat back, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her academic research, developed over years in laboratories and test ranges, had just contributed to saving lives in a real-world crisis. The theoretical had become intensely practical in a way she had never anticipated. Colonel Harrington approached her, his usual military reserve softened by genuine appreciation. "Dr. Reynolds, your contribution today was exceptional. That shot would have been impossible without your expertise." "Cooper made the shot," Emma said simply. "I just provided the calculations." "Don't underestimate what you accomplished," Wilson said, joining them. "The integration of your system into an active operation with no prior training or preparation is unprecedented." As the crisis team began their debriefing, Emma found herself included as an essential participant, rather than an outside observer. Her insights were sought, her expertise acknowledged without question. The barrier between academic consultant and operational asset had dissolved in the crucible of a life-or-death situation. Later, as they prepared to return to the training facility, Cooper sought her out. His usual confident demeanor was subdued, replaced by thoughtful reflection. "I've been shooting professionally for 12 years, he said quietly. "Trained with the best in the world. But today, that shot it was different. Your system gave me a level of certainty I've never experienced before." Emma nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. "That's what my research has always been about, removing variables, increasing certainty. I just never expected to see it applied this way." Cooper looked at her with new respect. "You know, when you first arrived at the range yesterday, we all thought you were just another academic with theories that wouldn't hold up in the real world." Emma smiled slightly. "And now?" "Now," Cooper said with absolute sincerity, "I think you might just change everything about how we approach precision shooting." As they walked toward the vehicles that would take them back to the facility, Emma reflected on the extraordinary turn her research visit had taken. She had arrived seeking data for academic papers and left having demonstrated the real-world impact of her work in the most dramatic way possible. Sometimes the most powerful validation comes not from peer reviews or academic accolades, but from the moment when theory meets reality and lives are saved as a result. The following morning, news of the successful crisis resolution had spread throughout the special operations community. When Emma arrived at the training facility, she found the atmosphere transformed. Personnel from various elite units had gathered, all curious about the civilian researcher whose innovative approach had made the impossible shot possible. Colonel Harrington greeted her with a formal handshake that communicated more respect than words could convey. "Dr. Reynolds, your assistance yesterday has attracted attention at the highest levels. The Director of Special Operations Command has requested a detailed briefing on your atmospheric modeling system." Emma took a deep breath, still processing the rapid evolution of her role from academic observer to operational consultant. "I'd be happy to prepare a presentation, Colonel. When would this briefing take place?" "Next week in Washington," Harrington replied. "But first, there's something else you should see." He led her through the facility to the advanced training area where she found the Delta team already assembled. Cooper stood at the center, explaining something to a group of attentive operators from other units. A large digital display behind him showed Emma's atmospheric modeling system, now integrated into the facility's training software. "We worked through the night to implement your approach into our standard protocols," Wilson explained as they watched. "Cooper's been teaching it to representatives from every special operations branch since 600. Emma was stunned. "That's remarkable. I didn't expect such rapid adoption." "In our world, Dr. Reynolds, results speak louder than tradition," Harrington said. "What you demonstrated yesterday wasn't just a theoretical improvement. It saved lives in a situation where conventional approaches might have failed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." Cooper spotted them and waved Emma over. As she approached, the assembled operators parted respectfully, their expressions reflecting genuine interest rather than the skepticism she had initially encountered. "Dr. Reynolds," Cooper began formally, "would you mind taking us through the core principles again? These gentlemen are having trouble believing that atmospheric microvariations could make such a significant difference at urban distances." For the next 2 hours, Emma conducted an impromptu masterclass on advanced ballistic physics. The elite operators, some of the most skilled shooters in the military, listened with the focused attention of students encountering a revolutionary concept. They asked insightful questions, proposed operational scenarios, and tested her system against their most challenging experiences in the field. "In the Hindu Kush," a seasoned Army Ranger said, "we had a situation where shot placement would vary by several inches despite identical conditions according to our instruments. Could your system account for that?" Emma nodded, pulling up a simulation on the main display. Mountain environments create complex air currents that standard measuring tools can't detect. What you experienced was likely the interaction between thermal layers and geographical features creating invisible wind corridors. She demonstrated how her system would model these conditions, predicting variations that traditional approaches would miss. The operators exchanged glances, recognizing experiences from their deployments that had previously defied explanation. "This could have saved lives," the Ranger said quietly, a sentiment echoed in the nods of his colleagues. As the session concluded, Captain Rodriguez approached with an unexpected proposal. "Dr. Reynolds, the annual Special Operations Shooting Championship begins tomorrow. After yesterday's events, the command team has authorized a special demonstration of your system during the competition." Emma hesitated. "What kind of demonstration?" A live implementation during the extreme distance event, Rodriguez explained. We'd like Cooper to use your methodology against the defending champions from each branch. It would be the most effective way to demonstrate its practical value to the entire community. The proposal was both flattering and intimidating. The championship was the premier marksmanship event in the special operations world, attended by the military's absolute best shooters. A public demonstration would put her research under the most intense scrutiny possible. It's your call, Wilson added, sensing her hesitation. But there's no better forum to establish the validity of your approach. Emma considered the opportunity. Throughout her academic career, she had faced skepticism from traditional ballistics experts who viewed her innovative approach as too theoretical, too academic. This was a chance to demonstrate its practical value to the people who needed it most, the operators, whose lives might depend on shot placement under difficult conditions. I'll do it, she decided. But I'll need time to prepare Cooper thoroughly. You'll have full access to the range today and tonight, Harrington assured her. Whatever you need. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. For the remainder of the day, Emma worked intensively with Cooper to ensure he fully understood the nuances of her system. They progressed beyond the basics into the advanced applications, how to interpret subtle atmospheric cues that most shooters would miss, how to integrate multiple data points into a comprehensive model, how to anticipate changes before they occurred. The key difference, Emma explained as they tested various scenarios on the range, is moving from reactive to predictive shooting. Traditional methods adjust for conditions as they're measured. My approach predicts how conditions will evolve over the bullet's flight path. Cooper, already an exceptional marksman, absorbed her teachings with remarkable speed. By evening, he was consistently hitting targets at ranges that would have been considered nearly impossible under variable conditions. It's like having a sixth sense, he said during a break, examining the results of his latest series. I can feel the shot before I take it, know exactly where it will impact. That's the ultimate goal, Emma nodded. When the science becomes intuitive, that's when you achieve true mastery. As darkness fell, they continued working under the range lights, refining Cooper's technique until the application of Emma's methodology became second nature to him. Other team members joined them, each taking turns to experience the system firsthand. The transformation in their approach was remarkable, from initial skepticism to enthusiastic adoption in just 2 days. Late that night, as they finally prepared to leave the range, Cooper paused to look at the distant targets now riddled with precisely placed shots. You know what tomorrow means, don't you? He asked. Emma raised an eyebrow questioningly. Tomorrow, everything changes, he said simply. After the championship demonstration, every unit will want this system. Your research won't just be academic anymore, it'll be operational doctrine. The implications of his statement settled over Emma. Her work, developed in the relative obscurity of university laboratories and academic conferences, was about to enter the mainstream of military operations. The potential impact was enormous, both for her career and for the operators who would benefit from her innovations. Are you ready for that? Cooper asked perceptively. Emma thought about her grandfather, who had started her on this path with simple lessons on a rural Montana range. About her father, who had encouraged her to pursue ballistics as a science rather than just a skill. About all the years of study, research, and practice that had led to this moment. Yes, she said with quiet confidence. This is exactly what the research was always meant for. The next morning dawned clear and cold, perfect conditions for the championship. The event was being held at the facility's premier long-distance range, a sprawling course that featured targets at various distances up to 1,500 yards. When Emma arrived, she was surprised to find the viewing areas filled with uniformed personnel from across the special operations community. Word travels fast, Wilson explained as he escorted her to the VIP section. When people heard about yesterday's operation and your role in it, interest in today's demonstration skyrocketed. Emma's attention was drawn to a group of distinguished-looking officers being briefed by Colonel Harrington. "Who are they?" she asked. "Command staff from every special operations branch," Wilson replied, "plus representatives from the Pentagon's Advanced Weapons Research Division. Like I said, word travels fast." The championship began with standard events team competitions and individual challenges that showcased the remarkable skills of America's elite military shooters. Emma watched with professional appreciation, noting the excellent fundamentals and discipline displayed by each competitor. Cooper and the Delta team performed exceptionally well in the early events. But Emma knew the real test would come in the final challenge, the extreme distance competition that would feature her methodology against traditional approaches. As that event approached, Colonel Harrington joined Emma in the viewing area. "Dr. Reynolds, before the demonstration begins, there's someone who would like to meet you." He introduced her to a serious-looking general with intelligent eyes and a thoughtful demeanor. General Lawrence, Director of Special Operations Command. "He flew in specifically for your demonstration." The general shook Emma's hand firmly. "Dr. Reynolds, I've reviewed the reports from yesterday's operation. Remarkable work. We've been searching for a solution to atmospheric variable challenges for years." "Thank you, sir," Emma replied, maintaining her professional composure despite the significance of the moment. "The system is still evolving, but the principles are sound." "That's what we're here to see," Lawrence nodded. "A practical demonstration against our current best practices will tell us everything we need to know." The extreme distance event was announced, drawing everyone's attention to the range. 8 competitors, the champions from each special operations branch, took their positions at the firing line. Cooper represented Delta Force, looking focused and confident as he prepared his equipment according to Emma's specifications. The range officer explained the challenge: 5 shots at a 1,200-yard target under variable wind conditions, followed by 5 shots at 1,500 yards, a distance that pushed the limits of even the most advanced military rifles. Electronic scoring would measure not just hits and misses, but precise impact locations. Emma watched intently as the competitors began their preparations. The other shooters followed traditional protocols, checking wind flags, consulting standard ballistic calculators, making conventional adjustments. Cooper, in contrast, implemented her methodology, taking readings from multiple points and entering the data into the specialized software she had developed. The difference in approach was immediately apparent to the observing officers, who watched with professional curiosity as Cooper completed his preparations in significantly less time than his competitors. "He seems very confident," General Lawrence observed. "The system eliminates guesswork," Emma explained. "Once you understand the atmospheric model, you can predict bullet path with much greater certainty." The competition began with the 1,200-yard phase. Each shooter took their 5 shots in turn, all performing admirably. 7 of the 8 competitors managed to hit the target with at least 4 of their 5 shots, an impressive display of elite marksmanship. When Cooper's turn came, Emma felt a flutter of nervousness. This was the moment her research would be judged in the most public and consequential forum possible. If Cooper succeeded, her system would be validated before the entire special operations community. If he failed, years of work might be dismissed as theoretical rather than practical. Cooper settled into position, his movements fluid and confident. He took his readings, made his calculations according to Emma's methodology, and prepared for his first shot. The range fell silent as he controlled his breathing, found his natural point of aim, and squeezed the trigger. The report of his rifle cracked across the range. Through the spotting scopes, observers could see his first shot strike the absolute center of the target, a perfect bullseye at 1,200 yards. His second shot followed quickly, landing within a half-inch of the first. His third, fourth, and fifth shots created a tight cluster that could have been covered by a silver dollar. The display of precision was unprecedented at that distance under field conditions. A murmur ran through the audience of military professionals. Emma could see the range officers checking their equipment, confirming that the electronic scoring was functioning correctly. The results were clear. Cooper's performance had set a new standard for accuracy. "Remarkable consistency," General Lawrence commented. "But the real test will be at 1,500 yards. That's where atmospheric variables become exponentially more significant." The 1,500-yard phase began with the other competitors. At this extreme distance, their performance became more variable. Even the best shooters managed only 3 hits out of 5, with widely dispersed impact points. The unpredictable winds and changing atmospheric conditions created challenges that traditional methods struggled to overcome. When Cooper's turn came again, he repeated his methodical process, taking new readings and recalculating for the increased distance. Emma watched as he applied everything she had taught him, integrating multiple data points into a comprehensive model of the atmosphere between his position and the distant target. His first shot at 1,500 yards struck true, another center hit that elicited audible reactions from the observers. His second shot landed within an inch of the first, defying conventional wisdom about accuracy at such extreme distances. As Cooper prepared for his third shot, Emma noticed a subtle change in the wind patterns across the range, a shift that standard measuring tools would miss, but that her system was designed to detect. She watched intently as Cooper paused, rechecked his readings, and made a small adjustment before continuing. His third, fourth, and fifth shots completed another remarkably tight group, all 5 rounds within a 3-inch circle at 1,500 yards. A level of precision that military snipers had previously considered theoretically possible, but practically unattainable, under field conditions. When the final results were displayed on the main scoreboard, the difference was undeniable. Cooper's performance had not just won the competition, it had redefined what was possible in military precision shooting. The range erupted in professional appreciation, not wild cheering, but the measured acknowledgement of experts who recognized they had witnessed something significant. Emma felt a profound sense of validation as Colonel Harrington and General Lawrence exchanged meaningful glances. "Dr. Reynolds," the general said, turning to her, "I believe we need to have a serious discussion about implementing your system across all special operations sniper training programs." What followed was a whirlwind of activity. Emma found herself in an impromptu briefing with senior officers from every branch, explaining the scientific principles behind her methodology and outlining how it could be integrated into existing training protocols. The questions were incisive and practical, focused not on whether her system worked, Cooper's demonstration had settled that definitively, but on how quickly it could be implemented. "We'll need a comprehensive training program," General Lawrence said as the meeting concluded. "A standardized curriculum that can be taught to instructors across all branches." "I can develop that," Emma nodded, "with input from experienced operators to ensure it meets field requirements." "Cooper and the Delta team will work with you," Harrington decided. "They've already proven they can implement your system effectively." As the officers filed out, Wilson remained behind with Emma. "So," he said with a slight smile, "still think you're just an academic researcher?" Emma laughed softly. "I don't know what I am anymore. 3 days ago, I was collecting data for journal articles. Now I'm developing training programs for special operations." "You're someone who made a difference," Wilson said simply. "That shot yesterday saved lives. The system you demonstrated today will save many more in the future." Later that evening, the Delta team hosted a small celebration at the facility's officers' club. As Emma entered, she was surprised to find not just Cooper and his teammates, but representatives from every unit that had participated in the championship. The atmosphere was relaxed and collegial, with none of the skepticism she had initially encountered. Cooper raised his glass as she joined them. "To Dr. Reynolds," he announced, "who taught a bunch of stubborn operators that sometimes the academics actually know what they're talking about." Good-natured laughter rippled through the group. Emma raised her own glass in response. "And to the operators who were open-minded enough to give a civilian researcher a chance to prove her theories." As the evening progressed, Emma found herself engaged in conversations with experienced snipers from across the special operations community. They shared stories of impossible shots attempted, missions complicated by unpredictable conditions, and lives lost when precision couldn't be achieved. In each case, they wanted to know how her system might have made a difference. "That's the real measure of your work," Martinez told her during a quiet moment. "Not the academic recognition or the championship demonstration, but the missions that will succeed and the operators who will come home because they had the tools to make the impossible shot possible." The following week, Emma found herself in Washington, briefing senior military leadership on her atmospheric modeling system. The presentation was received with unprecedented enthusiasm, leading to an immediate authorization for full implementation across all special operations sniper training programs. General Lawrence personally presented her with a rare civilian commendation for her contribution to operational capabilities. "Dr. Reynolds," he said as cameras flashed, "your work represents the ideal of civilian-military cooperation, innovative research with direct, life-saving applications in the field." In the months that followed, Emma divided her time between her university position and her new role as special consultant to the military's advanced marksmanship programs. With Cooper and the Delta team's assistance, she developed a comprehensive training curriculum that made her complex scientific principles accessible to operational snipers. The system was eventually given an official designation, the Reynolds Atmospheric Modeling Protocol, RAMP, and became standard doctrine for all military precision shooting. Reports from the field confirmed what the championship had demonstrated: significantly improved first-round accuracy under all conditions, but especially in complex environments that had previously challenged even the most skilled shooters. 1 year after her fateful visit to the Delta training facility, Emma returned for a special ceremony. The legendary Devil's Reach target, where she had first demonstrated her exceptional skills, was being officially renamed. "The Reynolds Challenge," Colonel Harrington announced to the assembled operators, "in recognition of the researcher who shattered our preconceptions and elevated our capabilities beyond what we thought possible." As Emma stood before the commemorative plaque, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with her grandfather's simple lessons on a Montana range. He had taught her that marksmanship was a perfect blend of science and art, of theoretical knowledge and practical application. In honoring that lesson, pursuing excellence in both, she had ultimately created something that transcended either discipline alone. Cooper joined her as the ceremony concluded. "You know what still amazes me?" he said. "That first day when you asked to take a shot at the record target, we all thought it was a joke. We couldn't imagine that someone outside our world could teach us anything about something we'd been doing professionally for years." Emma smiled. "And I was just hoping to collect some data for my research. I never imagined it would lead to operational implementations." "The best innovations often come from unexpected sources," Wilson added, approaching them. "From people who see problems from different perspectives, who aren't constrained by, 'That's how we've always done it.'" As the three of them looked out over the training range where it had all begun, Emma felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her research had transcended academic boundaries to make a tangible difference in the real world. The precision shooter's eternal challenge, mastering the invisible forces between barrel and target, had been transformed by her willingness to approach an ancient art through the lens of modern science. Sometimes the most revolutionary advances don't come from where we expect, not from insiders with decades of traditional experience, but from those who bring fresh perspectives to established practices. Emma Reynolds had entered the elite world of special operations, marksmanship, as an outsider, faced initial skepticism with quiet confidence, and ultimately changed the field forever through the power of innovation and excellence. The true measure of her contribution wouldn't be found in academic citations or military commendations, but in the lives saved by operators who could now make the impossible shot possible, all because a civilian researcher had the courage to ask, "Can I take a shot?" when no one expected her to succeed. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.